In this episode, we'll be exploring one of the best kept secrets in South Africa's Eastern Cape, the Kouga to Baviaanskloof 4x4 trail. A few months ago, I made a series showing the crossing of the famous Baviaanskloof Valley from west to east over 3 days, and in that video I said that there was only one way in and out. Well, that's not entirely true, and today I'm going to show you a hidden gem that very few people know about. A road that connects the Baviaanskloof Valley to the Duriekloof Valley by crossing the Kouga Mountains. First, let's orientate ourselves. Here's the route in relation to southern Africa, and if we zoom in, we get a better view of the mountainous terrain and the two halves of this trail. We'll be taking this road from south to north, starting at the town of Kouga in the Duriekloof Valley and spending the night in the mountains before crossing the bulk of the Kouga Mountains the next day, and then descending into the Baviaanskloof Valley where we'll camp at Duriekloof. We begin by driving towards the town of Kouga on the R62. The weather isn't looking great today, but thankfully this was filmed over summer, so we don't have to worry about the sort of snow and frigid temperatures that this area is known for. With the Kouga Mountains being really close to where I live, this is actually one of the spots where Nicole and I go every year in the winter to find snow. The rain does start to clear up, and after a couple hours on the tar road, we take the turn off onto the gravel and the adventure begins.
We've already been driving for probably an hour and a half, but the real adventure starts here. We've left the tar road and we've left the Duriekloof Valley, and we are climbing outside the mountain range to the north of the Duriekloof, just up a winding little mountain pass. At this point the road is still pretty well graded, but as we get further and further away from the tar road, the road is going to get a little bit bumpier. So that is why we've deflated our tires. It's partly for traction, but mostly just for comfort, and from here on out we really start to get wild.
As we move north, all signs of civilization disappear and we feel completely alone. The road crosses over the Kouga River, and if the name sounds familiar, that's because we've actually shown this river before in previous episodes. Once at Sikkelpoort, where we had a coffee break on the cliff, and once during the Baviaanskloof series where we camped further downriver, right on the banks. After crossing the Kouga River Valley, we continue north with the Kouga Mountains in the distance. Now I've divided this route up into two sections, the blue section being the well-graded road and the green being the 4x4 route. In the past, I've camped at Baviaanskloof Lodge at the bottom here, and I'd highly recommend this as a great halfway point. It's right down in the valley, so it's really green and sheltered, with a stream running right past the bush camp. But we're finding camp somewhere a little bit wilder tonight. As we climb up the south face of the Kouga Mountains, we pass through thick bush that can very easily scratch your vehicle. As we climb higher though, the bush is replaced with low fynbos, and it's here where we'll be camping.
So it looks like we have found our camp spot. Just managed to level the vehicle on some rocks. Took quite a long time, but it was worth it. Looks like the wind has died down a little bit, thank goodness, which means we can at least enjoy being outside the vehicle, and doesn't look like we're gonna have too much rain this evening, if any. But look at that view, just mountains all around us. Sun will be rising on that side, and then the sunset is just on this side. We're on the top of a hill here essentially, so the sun will set over those mountains over there. So we're well and truly in the Kouga Mountains, and we're going to be treated to some insane views over the next few hours.
We're expecting a bit of a rough night as the clouds look pretty ominous, and we do actually see rain falling in the distance, but the whole point of being out here in such a desolate place is to actually embrace the feeling of being exposed to the elements, away from safety, and in touch with the wild nature of these mountains. For dinner, we're doing something very simple, chicken sausages on the pan. We'll save the fancier food for tomorrow, but today the goal is to get an early night. Well, we've woken up in paradise, we really have. It was bucketing with rain last night, and the wind was so strong that I thought I actually had to get out the tent and check whether it was still like structurally sound. But that seems to have disappeared. There are clouds on the horizon, and I do think that it is going to be quite overcast day today, but we're enjoying a little patch of sunny weather while we have coffee and just slowly start packing things up. But I mean, this view, not the kind of place you want to move away from. Just rolling hills, on all sides as far as the eye can see. But yep, we're gaining altitude today, climbing up higher into the Kouga Mountains before descending down into the Baviaanskloof Valley, and a real adventure awaits us. There's no rush whatsoever to pack up camp. With it being summer, we have plenty daylight hours, and we slowly get everything ready for the drive ahead. So you see this road over here?
Yes.
You see we're going up that road? Mm-hmm. Now you see that road over there, just on the edge of that hill.
Oh yeah?
Going up there.
Going over the top.
Now you see that road over there, and the other mountain going up?
Yeah.
Going up that one also. Now do you see the other road all the way down there on that hill snaking up?
Hectic.
We're going up that also.
Yo, that's crazy.
It's far. We've got a long way to go. Today's drive is where the fun really begins. We'll be spending the next few hours gaining altitude as we climb up to the high point of the pass before crossing the neck and then descending down the northern slope into the Baviaanskloof. The road is not technical at all and probably drivable in most high clearance off-road vehicles. You'll want to go slow though, because it is a bit bumpy and the gradient can get pretty severe in some places. I am looking at Gaia GPS at the contours, and looks like we've just passed the 1,000-meter altitude mark, and we'll continue to climb. But man, the view up here is insane, hey?
Oh, it's so beautiful.
So beautiful. I just, you know, it's great weather because it's overcast, but it's the clouds are not in the way of anything, and there's no rain and there's no wind basically, so we can see everything around us out to many hundreds of kilometers. Great visibility, and we're not getting too hot in the summer heat, so great conditions, and we're really enjoying the ride so far. Still very early on in the day, but I think it's only going to get better and better. This area does form part of the Baviaanskloof Conservancy, so it's normal to see some game roaming free up here, and although it's a lot less animal rich than the more diverse Baviaanskloof Valley, there are plenty of wildebeest, hartebeest, duiker, steenbok, and even leopards up here.
Well, this is where it helps to be prepared. We probably ride in the middle of this route with probably 30 or 40 kilometers to go each way, and we've just noticed some electrical cables hanging out the bottom. So they must have broken off on a plant or a twig or something, and we can't figure out for the life of us what they connect to. We've checked that they're not going to anything super important like radiator, starter motor, anything like that. They seem like very thin cables that would be connected to lights, but all the lights work, so can't really diagnose the problem, but this is what helps be prepared. We've got cable ties. We're going to just make sure it's tied safely where it's not going to get ripped off even further, and then we'll get down to the bottom and diagnose the problem properly at the bottom at Duriekloof. So hopefully it's nothing serious, but vehicle's running, staying cool, everything seems okay, so fingers crossed. So now we are descending all the way down. Obviously there'll be some ups and downs, but we've passed over the main neck where the catchment areas for the kind of Kouga River Valley and the Baviaanskloof River Valley separate. So we're now in the Baviaanskloof River catchment area, and this should be pretty cool because the vegetation will start to change as we go that side. South facing mountains generally catch a little bit more of the moisture from the clouds coming off the ocean, and now we kind of where the north facing mountains are, so it'll get a bit drier, and then when we get down into the valley it'll get nice and kind of moist and green again. So really excited to see what it looks like now. But yep, Baviaanskloof Valley in front of us, Baviaanskloof Mountains opposite side, and we are kind of descending down the Kouga Mountains now. So it's been awesome so far, enjoying it, and the sun is out, so nice and warm for lunch when we stop.
The descent down into the Baviaanskloof is really one of the best parts of this drive because the ground just drops away into massive canyons on either side of you. It's a sight to behold if ever there was one.
So how's this for a lunch spot? We've just set up here in perfect weather, very little wind, and sun's shining, but it's not too hot. And on this side we've got just the beautiful Baviaanskloof Valley with Duriekloof, our camp spot for tonight, down below us, and just these hills coming down with totally different vegetation to what we've seen this whole route so far. So far it's been a fynbos biome, which is sort of very like small bushes with very fine leaves and some grassland, and now it's suddenly changed where we've got succulents and we've got a landscape that's more conducive to game. So we might see some animals on our way down, but the goal right now is to have some lunch, and man, I'm hungry. So for lunch today we are doing boerewors rolls, which is a South African classic. It's basically sausage on a roll with some tomato sauce. So my uncle actually butchered this, so pretty cool to have that. And I think that's it.
The end is in sight as we enter Duriekloof and the gradient begins to flatten out. Man, it feels good to be back in the Baviaanskloof again. And if you're wondering why this area is called Duriekloof, During means thorn, and there are lots of thorn trees here.
So here's what our campsite at Duriekloof looks like. A nice little secluded spot in the bush. but we've got a little fireplace area there, and these bushes just provide a little bit of shade and a bit of privacy. There are full ablution facilities and everything, but having our own secluded spots allows us to just stay separate and feel like we're really in the middle of nowhere, which is great. So set up time, and then we might just have a little afternoon nap, and then enjoy the evening, make a fire, and just do the usual camping stuff.
Of all the places to come across fans of my channel, I did not expect it to be here, but I meet some guys with an FX Impact that needs some tuning. It was great to chat airguns for a while, and these guys actually live here, so there is a chance that maybe I'll be able to come hunt here sometime in the future. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Okay, what are we getting?
I'm gonna have the milk stout.
Milk stout.
It's a big boy. The campsites at Duriekloof are great. They are well sheltered and green, and tonight we'll be treating ourselves to some steak. With the smell of steaks about to be thrown on the fire, we begin to see more than just insects, as a whole troop of vervet monkeys begins to eye out our food. Needless to say, I will not be turning my back on these steaks anytime soon. Once again, we get a relatively early night after a long day of driving, as tomorrow will bring another long drive all the way out of the Baviaanskloof and back home. The following morning begins with coffee and toasted sandwiches cooked on the rocket stove. It's a fun alternative to cooking on gas, and I'll probably do a little video of this in the future, but for now it's time to pack up camp and head off on a little exploratory drive up one of Durienkloof's many gorges. This one is called Klipspringer Gorge, and it was a really fun way to end off our time at this wonderful place before driving home.
I can't believe just how awesome this place is. You come in through this narrow gorge all the way down here, like at some point so narrow that you wouldn't even be able to fit 3 people side by side, and if you look behind me, it just opens up into massive caves, and it just keeps going up that side. And look above me, it's just it's almost closing above us, so it's this super steep gorge. But man, this place is awesome, and gonna keep going forward, I guess.
If you'd like to see more about the Baviaanskloof Valley itself, please check out my 3-part series. I think you'll enjoy it. Once again, thanks for following along with us on this episode. If you liked it, please leave a comment below and consider subscribing. From both Nicole and I, cheers, and we'll see you next time.